Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another Improve Your Grade the 1% Way with myself, Dave Foster, MA etc., etc. You know the rest, etc. Today, I want to look at with you guys, was the trainer aware of the surroundings and the pupil's actions? Quite an interesting one, really, because when I first thought about it, you think, well, what is it about? Competency is found under risk management, so obviously it's quite an important one, because as we know, if we get less than a low score in the risk management category, well, it's all over. So we really need to make sure this is. So what is it about? It is an essential skill. If missing, you will miss important things. You can't work on stuff you don't see. So that includes things of what is your pupil doing, what is going on in the car, but also what is going on outside the car. And I tried to think about this. What are the biggest problems? And I'll come up with some of the things I found. Knowing where to look is essential. In fact, it's so essential. It is the first thing I tell my trainers to work on with PDIs when they're training. We do an initial thing first of all, where I get them to know where the faults might occur. When I initially used to do instructor training, again, I found that instructors just didn't look at where the faults were. They were too busy looking out the big square window at the front. So knowing when and where to look is essential, really. But let's look at, first of all, I say the very common fault that I've seen, and I've seen this over 20 years, and that is staring out the front window. I get in a car, a PDI, a trainee instructor who's been out there, maybe even out there for a year delivering lessons. The first thing I see them do is looking out the window. So, for example, they might say to their pupil or me in role playing, they look up and say to me, I want you to take the next road on the left, right? Okay. And it's almost as if they look at me, the whole world's going to fall to bits. They don't want to look at me because they're too busy looking out that front window. They bring the seat forward, I often see it. They hover over the dual controls, even using the dual controls, sometimes without even knowing it. Let me share a little, I don't know if it's funny or sad really, but I'll tell you a little story. Quite often, or not quite often, but a few times this would happen. I would role play an instructor, and when I used to do an assessment of somebody who came to me for rescue work, I always did the same thing. I want you to teach me how to emerge from junctions. I've never done them before. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a little bit scared. I'm a bit worried. I've heard bad things about it. Blah, 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 blah. Centre then tells me to get ready. Okay, so I'm roll, and then we drive. And as I go towards that very, very first exit, that very, very first junction, which is normally out the car park, I sort of look towards them and I can see them and their head is looking. Me, I can have a total party. I can do whatever I want and they are not going to see me. I had this thing. But sometimes something else happens. As we get to the junction and I don't start to slow, the car slows down on its own because the instructor actually uses the dual controls and stops the car. Me in role play normally say, oh, has this car got some sort of automatic brakes? Because it just stopped on its own. No, they say, you've got to brake. Oh, okay. We move on to the next junction. And the same thing happens. The instructor's looking out the window and actually does the braking. Well, normally at this point was my usual thing where I say, right, stop, out of roll, turn left here. I'm just going to come around and we'll go back to where we started from. And now I'll talk about it. And I would ask him about their use. They said, no, I'm not using the dual controls, they say. They actually were using the dual controls so much, they didn't even know they were using them. Their whole focus, it was as if they were driving the car from that passenger seat. Worrying. Now, if this is you, I know you're not going to stick your hand up and admit to it because you might not even know it, but stop. You know, if you find yourself getting in the car, pulling the seat forward and setting yourself up over the dual controls, ready, stop, okay? Stop. I'll tell you now. Now, before we move on with this and I tell you what to do, I appreciate it's very hard. If you've been doing this for a while, you have to learn where to look and when to look, but it's going to be really, really hard because if you've been doing this, all your instincts, everything in your body will be telling you not to. Fortunately, there is an easy way to help us out with this. We teach the pupils, probably, the MSPSL and POM routine. Now, even if you don't teach these routines, and you don't have to necessarily ensure the pupil uses, teach them, but they must be using them, etc., etc. They don't have to know them. But we should be, because for us, we need to, it's actually the order that the faults can occur. So to me, you know, I stick with the MSPSL, the POM, they're the ones that the DVSA use, and I would be using. I know there are some out there that say they teach the advanced roadcraft methods, but honestly, you don't want, you know, like IPSCA going on in your brain, or the pupil using IPSCA while you're technically using MSPSL. But don't get confused there. So we say, while looking at our pupil, take the next road on the left. So, John, I'd like you to take the next road on the left. I'm looking towards my pupil. Now, while I'm looking towards my pupil, I am probably also aware. So I've looked at the road ahead. Oh, we're going to take the next road ahead. I'm thinking to myself, there's a car over there, there's a pedestrian. Good, good, good. Okay, John, I'd like you to take the next road on the left. I've also looked around. I can also see to my right, my peripherals, etc. I know what's going on. I am prepared now. So what is the next thing I'm prepared for happen? I'm looking at John. Okay, I've asked him to take the next road on the left. What do I want to happen next? Mirror checks. I keep looking. I'm already looking at John. So John looks up, and I would hope that there would be some sort of reflection action on the mirror center and the mirror left. Now, previously I was aware of the cyclist or whatever's going on, and I may look up and say, great, John, what were you looking for? You know, I may not need it. It depends on that pupil at the time, but I'm already aware. Okay, so let's keep this simple. My pupils made their mirror checks. What do I expect them to do next? Yeah, signal. So my eyes move from the mirror down and check the signal. Good. Was the signal needed? Was it necessary? Good. Then what am I expecting? We're into position. Now I can look out the big square window. So I'm back to the window, and first thing I'm thinking is the position correct? Great. But at the same time, that's a few seconds, a second probably. Yeah, this feels good. I can also look at the road ahead again. So what's going on? Has anything changed? What's my junction looking like? Are there any pupils? You know what to do. You're good at this bit. You're looking ahead, and that is, you've got it. So now what am I expecting? Well, I now need to think about speed. Now, most of the time you can feel the speed. Does it feel too fast for this junction? And if it looks like fish, smells like fish, then it's fish. Okay, so is it too fast for the junction? You may need to do a little glance on some of the others later on. I'll do an example of another one in a moment. But here's the hard one. Now they get to the junction. Where should your pupil look? They should be looking, you know, into the junction. They should be looking. So you need to look again at your pupil. Is my pupil looking into the junction? Are they looking? And maybe I need some questions. What have you seen into the junction? Is there any dangers there, or is there anything that might cause us to stop John? Okay. Now I can obviously glance if I want to, but my focus needs to be on what is John is doing. And when John has done it, I can do it. I use a phrase very often. Look after my pupil by looking after the pupil. So I'm taking care of them by looking after them after they've looked, which is what we need to do. If you're not doing that, you're going to miss things. Now I use this MSPSL for everything I do. Let's give a real top of the road example. We're driving up a motorway, okay? Right, so we're driving up the motorway, we've joined the new road, etc. We're in the road. What do I want my pupil to do? Mirror checks. So I've looked. My pupil has checked their mirrors. Great, nice mirror check there, John. Great. Signal, don't need it. But I've still thought signal. I don't need the signal. But I might be thinking, has the signal cancelled? Great. So I'm aware the signal is off. It is cancelled. Position. I'm looking out the front window again. Does the position feel good? Yes. Speed. Is the speed okay? Are we building up speed? I don't need to teach you these things. You know what speed the pupil should be doing. What you probably have trouble with is thinking speed. And then again, look, is my pupil checking their mirrors often? So again, I'll be watching where the pupil's looking up the road. At the same time there, I come back around again. Mirror check. Is my pupil checking the mirror? Now and again. Good. Signals off. Position still good. Speed still feels good or not. Look, looking at the road ahead, what can we see? What might I have to bring John's attention to? Mirror again. Good. He's checking his mirrors regularly. Signal. Good. It's off. Position. I keep on doing this. I just keep on the routing all the way through. It's actually how I passed my Part 2 test. It's how I passed every advanced test I've ever done. I just keep being aware of what's going on in the car. Okay, I want to just keep it going. The look at the end is probably the hardest because every instinct in your body is telling you to look, but you need to look at them first and compare their looking. What can you see? Anything that might need to ask a question. And I often, when I'm teaching, refer to it as a Zen style of instructors. You need to be in that zone. You need to be focusing on the mirrors, the signal, the position, the speed, and the look. I say, even going on that dual carriage or that motorway, you're thinking the mirrors, checking them. Yeah, signal, don't need it. Position, that's good. Speed, are we up to speed? Look, what am I looking for ahead? What can we be seeing? And we just keep that process going. Okay. And even our own look, we're thinking what's behind us, check at our own mirrors, what's behind us, what do we need to be aware of? And you just need to keep that going. As I said before you tell them any direction, scan the area, look in there's potential problems. You need to be aware, you need to be concentrating on it for them. Several steps ahead of your pupil. You're assessing very quickly risk and dangers, thinking what can my pupil deal with as well, because it may be some situations coming up. You've got a pupil who's just done basic junctions and things. You've suddenly seen a vehicle coming towards you. Hang on, my pupil's not done this. John, I'll take responsibility for this. You haven't done it. Just slow down a bit, and being aware of where your pupil is. A big problem here as well, common one on the Part 3 and the standard ship really, is where instructors end up dual controlling a pupil. Suddenly on the roundabout they're dual controlling them, etc., etc. And this is probably been a big arguing point, because often the examiner says things like, you really didn't need to dual them there, because if you had been more proactive, you wouldn't have got into that situation. And then the PDI is arguing that, yeah, of course I had to dual them, because what would you want me to do? Do you want us to crash? But the point is that they mean that, yes, at the end you ended up having to dual them because you were not dealing proactively by looking far enough into the road ahead. I think for driving instructors, I've often used the phrase like a fishing rod, where when you turn into the road, you throw your eyes as far down to the road as possible. It's like you're casting a rod as far down and then bring them back, okay, and bring them back, trying to catch on everything that you can see. By looking far ahead, if there is a cyclist or something close in, you will see them. This proactive approach has got to be used. Now, the MSPSL rules works in vertically moving traffic, but what about moving off or a manoeuvre, etc., all that? Well, that's where that POM comes. So again, similarly, you're thinking, prepare the car. You don't need to look at you can do this with eyes shut. Don't, of course, close your eyes, but in a sense you think about it. Quick look around. Right, John, you're going to move off, or you're at that junction. The first thing you need to be thinking is preparation. You're at a junction, is the car in first gear? You can feel the bite being found, you can feel the gas, you feel the bite. Remember, it is always gas before the bite. You've set the gas, that feels good. You've set the bite, that feels good, etc. Only at that point do you want the observations done. And then it's the observation. So you're watching the pupil. Are they looking right, left, right? Are they looking enough? Are they looking effectively? If it's a manoeuvre, are they looking all round? Which way do you want them to look? Left to right, right to left? It depends on the situation. You're already aware of the junction over on the right on the blind spot. You're already there. You already know whether or not you need to ask them, have you seen what's on the right, you know, and asking those questions. So you need to be preparing like that. And again, it's that thing, whether they're moving off from the side of a road, whether they're moving off from a junction. You often see the instructor and the pupil all of a sudden a bit of a stall. Oh, what happened there? The instructor looks down and then sees that the pupil is in third gear. Oh, you're in third gear, John. You're not in the right gear, etc., etc. That is too late. That was reactive. The good instructor, as the pupil comes to a halt, will go straight into POM. The good instructor will be thinking about preparation. Has the pupil prepared to go straight into first gear, set the gas, find the bite, and make the observations, etc. Okay, it's at that point. It doesn't happen the other way around. If you're an instructor, then suddenly we then have a stall, and then the instructor said, "Oh, which gear should you be in?" That's a reactive instructor, just the same as that instructor who ended up dual controlling at the roundabout because they weren't watching the road ahead or hadn't planned. That is exactly the same. We don't need, a pupil does not need to look up and down the road and do all 360 if the vehicle is not prepared. It needs to be prepared first. And again, quickly assess the situation. This is what I've just been speaking about. You're aware of the junction, you're aware of the blind spot. We've done this. It's all in our brain. Now here's a top tip many are not going to agree with. Warning, lose all the mirrors. Well, not all of them, but I keep seeing instructors with so many scooters, so many mirrors. They look like they're mods on a Lamboretta scooter going to Brighton. You know, they've got 2 or 3 interior mirrors. They've got different mirrors hanging from the outside mirrors, blind spot mirrors, and all this. Like, okay, bright shiny objects just distracting you. Okay, get into the habit of focusing on the pupil. Sit in your seat, turn slightly maybe, and look and focus on that pupil. I, like many people, did this when I first came into instructing. I started putting the extra mirrors on, etc., etc., and I found I was missing things. It was only when I lost them all, I only had my interior extra rear view mirror. That's all I had. When I only had that one, I found I was then aware. I was able to start focusing on the pupil. I was looking round more. You know, it's almost as if, no matter how many mirrors you have, you're going to miss something. But I actually started using my observations around. I then focused on the mirror, signal, position, speed, look, the POM. I focused that, I got that, and it worked. But I have seen many instructors who then what they end up doing is moving their focus from the pupil to the mirrors, and you see them there sitting there. Now, the mirror won't see all the peripheral, they won't see it all, and that's it. Learn to focus on the routines and that there. It's about being aware. And get back off the duals. The final thing on this one, I think, put your seat back as far as it goes, get behind the pupil, get back, you'll see where they go. I know you're thinking, but I've only got little short legs, what if I need? Well, trust me, I have an inside leg of 27 inches. It is very short. I promise you this, put your seat to the back, okay, as far back as it goes. I promise you this, if you were sitting in the boot and you needed the dual controls, you will find them. I always found them, but I only found them when I needed them. So your task for this week, how to improve the 1% way, is start using the routines to look for what the pupil is doing. Get yourself focusing on the pupil, focusing on there, looking at the road ahead and really thinking. So at the end of this week, you should be able to say to yourself, do you know what, I'm a lot more aware of what's happening. Plan yourself. What could the risks, what could the problems be here? Now this week, I'm not going to talk about my book or anything else. I'm just going to ask everybody to do a favour. Not necessarily to me, but if you're liking this series and you find it useful, then do someone a favour and share these videos. Just share them with 1 or 2 people that you know could benefit. Share the heck out of them if you want, but just share them, please, because, you know, let's share this. We all like to do good things. We all like to share good stuff. So, you know, if everybody just shared 1 or 2 of them to people, then it's there. So that's all I'm asking. Otherwise, that's it for this week. Next week, we'll look at physical and verbal interventions. That's things like dual controls, etc., etc. And we'll cover that. You have a great week, and I'll see you all next Monday. Bye for now.